What's up, guys? It's your host, Spartanic Arts DXD, back with another high school DXD related video. Today we have What If Issei Was Abandoned Part 17. Now, I know you're in the premiere right now, and we've been doing a ton of balance breaker and limit breakers. I cannot thank you guys enough. You're absolutely amazing. If you guys want to become one of those, it'll be the first link in the description, and I'll post it right in the premiere chat. As of right now, I will be in here. And if you guys want to hit that like button right now, let's try to hit 1,000 likes once again. We've been hitting 600, 700, but 1,000 would be absolutely awesome, and I'd really appreciate it. Also, if you guys want to know when I upload, my upload schedule, click the little blue button right next to the subscribe button, which is just becoming a balance breaker or a limit breaker. So, thank you so much for the support. Once again, I can't believe we hit 30,000. I did a what if. I'm going to do a poll on whether to do a what if about, let's just say, what if Goku was betrayed, what if Goku was in Vegeta were locking Whis' staff, or what if Goku was in High School DxD. If you guys want to see any of those three, leave a like or a comment in the description below. I will also put up a poll in what if Issei at Ultra Instinct the movie will be done, hopefully August, I'm going to say 11th. So thank you so much for the support, and without further ado, before we do anything else, if you guys want to subscribe to my two other channels, which is obviously and Palpalski and Fallen DxD, they'll be linked down in the description below, as well as in the related channels. Without further ado, let's go ahead and thank our balance breakers: Rob the King, Lachlan Yates, Atomic Warlord 58, Crumbling Darkness Sphere, Ant Lewis, The Beast YT3, Colex, Joe Baldwin, Russell Getchell Jr., Madara Uchiha, Refik 135, Keep Saying 21, Dragonlord 003, Sinwar Q, Xdatapat T Gaming, VRWolf hashtag 3347, Sanitates, Steven Cruz, ZKey 2000, The J Boys, the PS_gamer, XOR X108, Jordan Pachow, Mazaku, Dr_MG_ is the bomb, Asamotus, Grimfireshot Gamer, That Round Guy, Zero Fusion, Source Spawner, Nickmay98, God Said Why, and Chaotic Raven. Thank you so much for becoming a balance breaker, which is the highest membership tier. Now, without any further intrusion, let's go ahead and get into part 17. So we're starting off right back in the middle of Chapter 8, where Ross Visa has just been told Issei has gone missing. Let's see her reaction. Issei has been missing since a week ago. Her words howled like a hammer inside the Valkyrie's head. The little Damfer was almost the same, but he couldn't exactly believe it. He always idolized his senpai, and ever since Valerie went to the hospital because of overusing her sacred gear, he followed his heart and decided to never leave her side. He knew that his senpai would be proud of his decision. Never would he have expected something like this. All of his emotions were in turmoil. Tears started to fall from his eyes. Issei removed his pieces and left. He left. Rias basically screamed that sentence. Gasper felt dizzy. His head started to spin, and from his body, black smoke started to come out. Senpai. He felt terrible. Even his sacred gear was starting to get out of control. Ross Visa was almost the same, but she understood a bit more. He ripped his pieces out of his body and left? She knew what that meant, more or less. During this time period in which she was gone, Issei made a decision. And whatever forced him to do it was definitely horrible enough for him to be left with no other exit except that. What exactly happened during this time? What happened? Her bangs covered her eyes, but the surge of aura from her body made everyone feel tense. Even the little Dampafir felt threatened at the aura that Ross Visa emitted. A pale blue light surrounded her. It was not much in quantity, but the density and heaviness it made everyone feel goosebumps. Tell me everything. That was her only comment. Rias only shook her head in reply. Rias felt really scared by the look in her eyes. She soon started to explain. We don't know exactly why he left, but we believe it has to do with us. She decided to tell what she thought to be the truth. Her voice sounded really soft and insecure. Guilt flooded from her and behind her words. Good. Ross Visa noticed this. This isn't good. Seeing that expression, she understood that whatever happened was actually related to the woman in front of her. She also understood that it was something that will make her angry. Really, really angry. It all started like this. Rias decided to be the one explaining all of this mess. Gasper stood near the Valkyrie and, like her, decided to listen to her words. 1 hour or more later, both the Valkyrie and Daphne went wide-eyed, not believing a word she told them. You can't be serious, the Valkyrie asked. She thought that everything she told them now was a joke, and really bad one at it. Rias just tried to avoid eye contact with both of them. The response managed to confirm the words spoken by Rias to both. Rosvisa felt terrible. She started to feel dizzy. Her stomach ached, and her entire face was starting to change in color, from pink to white, and from white to almost blue. She placed a hand on her mouth and tried not to vomit. That's how bad she felt. Ugh. Her legs lost strength, and she fell down. Luckily, she landed on the coach. Stabilizing herself from the fall, she tried to recover some of her strength. At the same moment, she covered her face with both hands and looked straight at the floor. "You did! You actually did?" She couldn't believe it. It seemed like a lie. It had to be a lie. She was sitting there, perplexed. Gasper was feeling different. He widened his eyes, and soon his whole body started to tremble. He couldn't believe her words. The girls who were seeing this felt the same way as Rias. Guilt, anxiety, hopelessness, fear, among other emotions, were clearly seen in their eyes. In general, their entire selves were confused and exhausted. They were made a wet mess. Good, dicks. Rosvisa looked back at them, and the thought of something, a horrible outcome, a horrible idea born from the pessimism and fury. But her morbid curiosity got the best of her. Therefore, she asked, "You don't tell me you all did the same. You did the same?" She really hoped she was doing something wrong. She secretly prayed to whatever deity she knew to be terribly wrong. She didn't want this to be the truth. But life for once proved her right. The girls just did the same as Rias. Not having enough courage, they just turned their heads away. Sprint. Gasper could no longer handle it and started to run away from here. He needed time to think, to focus on all of his thoughts. No words were needed. Kiba, the moment he saw him like that, also started to run after him. Following closely, they soon left the room. The ones present didn't pay attention to this. Everyone was just too focused on their own bad thoughts. Then a cold voice was heard. It was as if it came from the deepest depths of hell. Everyone felt a chill run down their spines. They felt as if they awoke a sleeping beast, a monster, and said monster wasn't happy in the slightest. "Let me get this straight. You lot actually went out with other boys just to gain experience," she spat the word, "and then compensate any damage done to Issei at another time? But you were blinded by your own called feelings and forgot about Issei?" Each word sounded sharper than the last, and each one of those words pierced them in an extremely weak spot. Not even having the strength left to nod their heads, the silence was the only answer, but for Rosvisa, the silence was more than enough proof. She had no words nor thoughts. She just stared at them with an empty look in her eyes, as if she was looking at the stupidest people she'll ever meet. "You just cheated on him and started to get intimate with other guys? Men you haven't even known for more than 3 months? You threw Issei away like that, like he was a disposable toy, and now you think anything will change?" She was furious. Her entire self was surrounded in an aura that emitted anger and fury. "Issei." Tears fell from her eyes. Soon after, she opened her eyes in shock and just sat there. Thoughts started to fill her head. What exactly happened to you? She now felt extremely worried. She felt extremely anxious for the man she loved. Something must have happened. Not for anything. She was the one tasked to fix the seal on the beast. She found a loophole on the story. I can understand why he left, but taking his pieces out, he wouldn't have taken a risk just big for that. The risk is too much. What forced his hand? She started to think. Her analysis was quickly made. Okay. So in other words, there are 2 options. Either he was in such a horrible state that his own mental capacity was completely lost, hereby making him do a really stupid thing, or something happened with the pieces and was forced to take them out. Her thoughts were in a sense right, but she never thought that both outcomes could happen at the same time. After that, even one of them was already terrible enough. The both of them would be another story completely, a really bad story. But the pieces have never malfunctioned, nor could they kill someone. I also don't think he would do something as dumb as trying to remove the pieces from his body just because he could. She placed a hand on her chin, deep in thought. The girls just stood there, not moving in the slightest. Taking them out is practically suicide. No one has survived an extraction of pieces, but they say that he did. Her thoughts started to fasten even more, but after a couple of minutes of thinking, she reached nowhere. I have little to no information. She decided to ask more about this, even if it meant threatening everyone in her path. She stood up from her position and left the room, not looking at the remaining girls in the slightest. After she left, the heavy atmosphere on the room was still here. They knew that saying this wasn't going to be easy, but it still made them feel horrible. Meanwhile, Rosvisa started to look for a certain someone that knew she was in the mansion. After all, she could feel his aura. Following the aura throughout the entire mansion, she decided to reach the very top floor. On the terrace of the building, a man was drinking what she believed to be whiskey. He was leaning against the rail and was looking up the clouds in the sky. The perfect orange-colored sky was the only thing illuminating the terrace. After all, it was already quite late in the afternoon, and thanks to the talk with the girls, time passed rather quickly. The man turned around in the moment he felt someone at the entrance of the terrace, and right at the glass entrance that's similar to a window, a beautiful dressed woman could be seen. Her eyes held an indescribable light, but the thing that made him feel threatened was the expressions on her face. A mix of worry, anxiety, sickness, anger could be seen. It didn't take long for him to understand the reason behind it. He decided to play the fool in something he was really good at. "Oh, Rosvisa, you're finally back," he gave a calm greeting. For anyone, that would have proved useful. Unfortunately for him, Rosvisa was not in a mood to play games. She crossed the entrance and almost sprinted through the wooden A-wing. Every step was heavier than the last. "What's wrong with..." He was forcefully grabbed by the neck of his coat and slammed against the pillar. The entire pillar shook in an unstable way, and the fallen could feel the strength behind the grip. Luckily for him, his whiskey was on the edge of the rail, so thankfully it didn't spill over the stone floor. "Now you'll answer my questions," her voice sounded sharp. It even made him feel threatened. "What are you talking about?" He was terrified. Never has he been in this kind of position before. Then the coldest and sharpest voice ever in his life he heard. He felt as if death herself was in front of him and whispering sweet nothings into his ear. The eyes of the woman now could be fully seen, but they scared him even more. They held not a trace of light, as if they belonged to a person that just witnessed hell and survived. "Azazel, if you don't answer my questions, then I'll start breaking every bone in your hand. There are 27 bones, just a single in hand. Imagine the possibilities, the pain you'll experience." She hummed. She fucking hummed. This was no threat. It was a promise. "Then I'll move your lower arm. There are 2 long bones there. I bet they will hurt if they break." Azazel was downright terrified. What the fuck? What the hell is she thinking? She's got a screw loose. "Oh yes, they will definitely hurt. I'll make sure of it. Multiple screws loose. A metric fuck ton of them. Further up your arm, there are 3 bones, and a broken clavicle is not something you wish to have. Therefore, in a total, 32 bones broke. Just in a single arm. Ha! Father, please smite me or something. Snatch me away from the jaws of this lioness." Her promise made him pee his pants. "If you still refuse, well then I'll move the other arm. Then to your leg. If you still don't want to cooperate with me, to help me, then the little thing dangling in between your legs." He went pale-faced. He wanted to cry. "I'll rip it off, Azazel. I swear there will be no corner, no crook, no canny, no fucking place you would be able to hide from me. And when I catch you, because, oh, I will, you'll pray beg me to finish you off." Now this was the most terrifying moment in his life. Not even when he was in front of a beast, not even during the Great War did he experience something like this. What was worse, the eyes of the woman held no hesitation. She will actually do it? "Now, you'll decide. What exactly happened to Issei? I'm sorry, but we only know he went missing a week ago. We have our theories, but not a single one has been proved." He spilled the beans, just like that. Seeing nothing amiss, she asked again. "When was he last seen?" "Around a week ago, in Co Academy. He went there to ask for an absence of school." "Okay then, why did he remove his pieces? And don't give me the same story you told those kids. I'm not stupid." She grabbed his left hand and started to twist his index finger. "She'll really do it. She'll keep her promise. She'll keep her promise?" "I can't say that. I can't." She started to twist his finger even more. The little pops of his finger were clearly heard. "Ugh, wrong answer." Wait. She momentarily stopped. "Spit it out, Azazel." Okay. But you need to keep it a secret from everyone. From everyone," she nodded her head. "It started like this." Another hour went by. The sky darkened and soon night covered the entire Co. Rosvisa didn't move until Azazel finished speaking. "That's all I know. I swear on the body of my dead father." He was almost crying. He told her everything, the messages, the known reason, the report, everything. Thankfully, he didn't show her the video. With those messages he received, she heard them all. She quickly let Azazel go. As fast as he was capable of, he took a 5 good meter distance from her. Never have I felt that scared before. He felt goosebumps all over his skin. He even shuddered violently. After making that feeling go away, he just stared at the woman in question. Rosvisa was thinking, "So you did it because of that, Issei." Although much information was missing, at least she discovered the truth. She was angered, really angered, but even more so towards herself. If she was just there with him, nothing like this would have happened. Issei, I'm so sorry for not being there with you when you needed me the most. She fell on her knees in front of the pillar and started to cry in a low voice. Her entire body was trembling. That day that he was supposed to be the best in her life after finally confessing to Issei, and instead turned out to be the worst ever. The man she loved was MIA, presumed dead. The woman he loved, all of them, left to his luck. Even if she wasn't directly involved, she still felt awful. After crying for some time, she just sat there. Moving her head up, she looked at the pitch black sky and had some stars in between the clouds, the moon shining with dull light. She just kept staring at the sky until she more or less recovered. Will you blame them? Will you tell them that it was really their fault? Azazel still kept a distance and asked. Personally, yes. I want them to experience what he felt, but what can I do? They felt scared, that's normal, but they decided to make the worst possible decision, and with possibly the worst outcome. She started to talk in a much calmer voice. Their punishment is not for me to decide. Issei will have the pleasure. The word just rolled off his tongue. They are just a bunch of immature brats that made a terrible mistake, a stupid, unforgivable mistake, and the result of the decision they made will come for them. That will be their punishment. Her words were true. Azazel had to agree with that, but he was scared of the end result. If they confirm their suspicions, then it will end really badly. Please keep it a secret, just until we figure out a way to diminish the damage, he asked her sincerely. She turned to look at him and replied, I'll say this just in case, but whatever the end result is, I'll be on Issei's side, even if he decides to kill. She didn't want him to leave again. Not after all of this. Issei, when we meet, please tell me the entire story. Her thoughts went to her loved one. What will you do now? Azazel asked once again, this time feeling a bit more calm. I'll stay. I need to be an adult for once and actually think without my feelings numbing me. The tournament you mentioned will start soon, and call it a gut feeling, but I think we'll meet Issei during this time. She stood up and took a cold of breath air. Therefore, the best chance of seeing him is by staying here. I'll be the same as I have always been towards them. After all, it's not my position to treat them in a hard way. She started to pat her dress, getting all the dust and dirt off of it. Then she started to walk past the fallen angel and went inside the mansion, leaving the former governor behind and Terrence alone. He grabbed his whiskey and downed it a single go. This is such a big mess, he said, his mind out loud, and stared at the night sky. In a certain way, the sky calmed down. Maybe there was something good about this day. Scene change, training field, number 2. Kiba was running. Right now, he came from the elevator. He was chasing Gasper, who came here, maybe to think without anyone disturbing him. At the distance, right at the center of the entire field, he saw the damp of fear sitting on the ground. He had his head covered by his arms and his knees were against his chest. He couldn't hear a single thing, but he knew he must be crying. Walking closer, he approached Gasper. Seeing something a little Dafir turned his head up and saw the blonde knight of Gremory. Kiba-senpai. He looked at Kiba with teary eyes. Gasper, I really don't know what to say, Kiba confessed. His smile was like someone that had entirely given up. I'm going to be honest with you. I also feel terrible. He sat down behind the Daphne, resting his back against his. I feel extremely sick. I feel like I just betrayed my best friend in the worst possible way. His voice started to crack. He was finally saying his mind, and something took him far too long. But what could I do? The Daphne was listening to the knight, seeing the tears falling from the man's eyes, and he knew the burden placed onto himself was just too big. Guilt. It was something everyone, at least once in their lives, has experienced, and sometimes it hurts too much. Depending on what exactly you did, the guilt and remorse you feel increases or decreases. Some laminated over a decision they didn't make, others about a terrible act they once did, and some at the moment of not saying goodbye to their loved ones. Everyone has regrets, and the remorse of betraying someone you deeply cared for was by no means small. Right now, he felt like that. Ever since the last day he saw Issei, everything started to get worse. Since it was the last year of high school, everyone got too serious. The professors and the same students placing too much work on their shoulders as a sign of the beginning of a new life of responsibility to prove that college was different. Others didn't particularly care about anything, while the rest were so strict that the military school was a better choice. During that time period, everyone just dumped with a huge amount of things to do. Whether his master, school, or even himself, he stopped caring about other things and started to focus more on his own parents' pending matters. The devil jobs were either early in the morning or really late at night. During the afternoons, he had projects, videos, presentations, models to prepare, so every single day he was just too beat up. When he discovered exactly who these guys were, he was so exhausted he barely felt a tug. He wasn't in his best due to that he regretted. He knew about it. Yet because of the other pending businesses, he postponed it for later. Like that, days kept passing by and slowly his amount of work started to decrease, leaving him to think about them even more. He didn't ask the reason why. He thought it was just temporary, maybe trying to make Issei jealous, so he puts more attention to them, but when he discovered they were serious, it was too late. He couldn't say a thing. Just like when someone leaves something for the last possible moment and at the end they just don't do it. He went through the same. After the days passed, he felt even worse. His sleepless nights were no longer due to work, rather because of the thought of them not leaving him alone. He indeed tried to talk to the girls, at least once, but he was just ignored. No one cared about it during the time. He went to his master, but she just shrugged it off. He thought that since he's a servant, he couldn't say anything about this. Plus, this was really personal matter between them. He wasn't related at all. He believed that since he was just a servant and wasn't directly involved in this, no one could hear him. It didn't matter what he had to say. Thanks to those thoughts he had experienced of being completely ignored, a seed was planted inside of his head, idea of not worthy of saying anything, or a servant should just obey, started to bud. Even if he was his friend, his loyalty towards his master was bigger, and at that time he made his decision. He tried to ignore what happened. He put his loyalty in front of his friendship, another mistake. The emotions he felt during those days were pretty bad. Not for a moment did he think, did I make the right choice? Left his mind. He thought and thought about it, but he didn't reach a conclusion. After even more time passed, he made another choice, telling Issei the truth and help him. But he made it too late. He was already gone and no one had seen him. Even the faction chiefs were looking for him. But even after a week, not a thing has been found. I feel so bad. I could have saved my friend. He grabbed his head and tried to calm himself, a fruitless effort. I could have stopped him from removing his pieces. He also wasn't dumb. After thinking for some time, he reached the conclusion that Issei removing his pieces because he didn't want to be found was too ridiculous. My friend, my brother, he decided to remove them if it meant his death, and for what? No one knows. I, who swore to be by his side supporting him, left like a coward. I left him alone experiencing who knows what. All this because I was scared of something so dumb. He stood from his place and started to walk around, screaming with all his lung capacity. If I maybe had just put a courage he has, then I would have insisted even more with the girls. Maybe I would have helped him and talked out of doing something like that. What kind of friend stays with his arms crossed as he watches his brother in everything but blood try to commit suicide? Kiba was the one that almost was affected by this. He knew he betrayed his friend. He knew at that moment he decided something dumb. All of this because he felt he wasn't listened to, nor noticed, nor anything. He gave up without even trying, because this was something new for him. Who would have expected the girls to so suddenly fall for random guys they met less than 3 months ago? No one. Yet because of it, not only him, but the girls, Gasper, and even Ross Weiser were falling apart. He didn't dare to think what would happen if the factions discovered it. The yokais, the Norse, damn it, even Shiva that took interest in Issei. Probably everything they worked for the past year will go down the drain. Kiba stopped walking in circles and just stood there, looking at the ceiling. Gasper knew that he was probably the one that suffered the most. After all, he thinks that a sole person he dares to call a brother was betrayed by him. Kiba-senpai, I think that Issei-senpai won't blame you. Gasper stood up and started to comfort the knight. How ironic did that sound? The one that came to console was the consoled. Why do you say that? Because Issei-senpai is kind. I bet he understood since the moment you were burned with so many things that you needed to do them. He does know that, therefore, I think he won't blame you. Gasper sounded sure of his words, something rare in him. Kiba kept in silence, thinking about his words. When we see him again, if you feel that bad, then apologize. Better do that than nothing, even if it means little. Gasper was also saying those words to himself. After all, he was also away during this important moment, but he believed that his senpai will forgive him, probably even reprimand him because of making the choice he thought was right, but until now, he just hoped for the best. Kiba was silent, meditating those words. Maybe you're right. When I see him again, I'll apologize to him. Even if I'm a terrible friend, it's the least I owe him. He started to calm down. His previous relaxed appearance started to come back. But those guys, they are a different thing. They are too greedy and envious over what they think they could have. They are exactly frogs at the bottom of a well. Sooner or later, they will realize how big the world actually is. And at that time, I hope they notice several things. Since the first moment he met them, he knew those guys were an unusual greedy bunch. After some beatings during their training, they learned to hide it better, but they were still best amateurs. He noticed how they would try to compare themselves with Issei, but they don't know a thing. Even at the start, they tried to make him less, saying it was dumb luck, then he did nothing and it'd help. That if they had what he then, they could do it as well, even faster and better. Even after discovering what he did, they dismissed it. After learning more and more, and now at the meeting with Azazel, he noticed how they were frustrated. They had even had pure envy in their eyes. Well, it's useless to think about that. There will be a moment which they notice it themselves, how wrong they actually are. Kiba now had a plan and a short-term goal. I need to meet Issei. At the moment, I'll say everything I have too. He resolved himself and looked at the dapper at his side. Thanks, Gaspar. I really needed that. He smiled once again. Don't worry, Kiba-senpai. In a sense, I also needed to hear those words. After thanking each other, they started to leave the training field, both with a new goal in mind. They needed to see Issei, but for now, they had nothing about his whereabouts. They were also forbidden by the faction to do anything related to searching for Issei, so until anything about him was found, they couldn't do a thing. The only thing they could do was wait. Both of them knew that Issei was fine, just missing, therefore, he wasn't in any danger. They also needed to train for some game. After all, they were going to participate in it. They didn't know what kind of enemies they meet will there, but one thing is for sure, they will be extremely strong. They might even fight against gods, and for now they couldn't face one. Much training needed to be done. Little do these people know that I'm just going to add in something here. When these people are so jealous and envy of Issei, and they thought that if they had hit powers they could do it better, I hate these people. I cannot wait until Issei hopefully kills them. Scene change. Nasun Shrine after leaving the underworld. Ever since they came back from the underworld, Issei has been scolding the pair of women. One for starting a fight when it was not needed, and the other she scolded her by saying, "Why didn't she do anything to stop Erika?" After calming down, he asked the vampire if she won. She proudly answered, "Of course!" He liked that. A member of his team actually defeated the strongest youth in the underworld. Fine, I'll let it slide, but just for this time. The pair of women who were kneeling down in the middle of the yard behind the shrine actually looked at him in shock. "You will?" For once, their voice matches. The same surprise clearly heard in them. "Yes, you did defeat him. For me, that's more than enough," he told them while they stood up, cleaning all the debris off their clothes. "You're soft, partner." The words of Dreg also held the pride in his voice. "Only to them, Dreg. Only them." The dragon just smiled at those words. He liked how his partner didn't turn out to be cold to everyone around him. Issei just started to walk in the same direction of the shrine, and after reaching the wooden steps, he sat down. The woman looked at him and decided to walk close. Erika had something she wanted to ask. "Issei, how was the registration for the game?" She crossed her arms while waiting for his answer. The fox was also curious. She walked even closer to Issei and sat next to him, less than an arm away from him. Issei smirked, and from his darkness he took out a small black briefcase. As he did, the vampire looked at the fox, clearly uncomfortable about her distance with Issei. "Fox, you're too close, much too close for my light." She shook her head and removed those thoughts, just in time to hear the voice of Issei. "It was excellent. Even more than that." He opened the briefcase, and from it, 15 black pieces could be seen. But 3 of them had red linings and were shining in even brighter light. "Those are the pieces?" Fuki leaned forward looking at the pieces and, of course, showing great part of her cleavage to him. Issei saw her and moved his eyes away. This woman, she was way too flirty with him. "Yes, Fuki, the ones in the red linings are the mutation pieces." Now Erika leaned forward at those words. Her interest peaked. Unknowingly, she did the same as Fuki, but since her breasts were bigger, they stood out even more. "Oh, give me a break." He turned his eyes away again. He quickly decided to ask them something. "Well, aren't you too interested in how much you are worth according to this?" He took the phone they gave him during the registration and shook it. The pair of women looked in the phone, light in their eyes. "Yes," Fuki smiled at him. "I like her smile." Stopping this train of thought, he looked at the vampire, just nodded her head. "Fine, let's start." He opened the app. It was really simply designed. The main screen held various different buttons. There were news, teams, competitors, scan, and own matches. I see, quite self-explanatory. He tapped the scan button in a device not different from a camera filled to the screen. Fuki, stand over here. He pointed in front of him. The fox obeyed and stood barely a couple meters away. He tapped the scan, and from the device itself came out a red light that started to scan the yokai. It started from the button and reached the top. The entire process took a solid minute or two. After that, information started to appear on the screen alongside a small image of female at the top of the left of the screen. The information read as, name, unknown, race, yokai, specific race, Cubito no Yoko, level, high tier, low god. Possible species, 7 pawn pieces, 2 bishop pieces, queen piece, former pieces mutated, 4 mutated pawns. Issei stopped reading and looked at the beauty, shock hidden under his calm expression and rising eyebrow. God class! Those were his thoughts, but Drake soon explained.
Partner, even among gods there are classes, and low god is a simple god that has no battle attributes and is rather weak. The catchers of the Gregar should be around mid-tier low god max. Depends on who, Drake explained, but the excitement of Issei was still there.
Indeed, but she's not even over 20 and already has reached that level. Drake, imagine in the long run.
That's true.
Speaking of the powerhouses, how about the mouths of the Seraphs? Issei asked the dragon inside the gear.
As I said, the so-called level is just based on magic reserves alone, so there are beings that are said to be low class but can defeat a high class with ease. Don't trust those level much. If you do, it will cost you.
The dragon warned Issei, so it's like that. He then turned around and looked at the beauty. I believe I already know which pieces will suit you. He grabbed from the inside of the black briefcase, and the 2 bishop pieces showed. Then he walked near her and grabbed her hand, placing the pieces on her palm, and recited, would you, Benekomichi Fuki, become my sole push-up for this battle until victory is achieved? The beauty blushed. Inside her head, other words were said. Until the end of time, she answered with a beautiful smile that made the current Issei blush for once in a long time. The pieces lit up in red, warm, light, and went inside of her chest, and which the light died down. Feel different? Erika asked. While looking at the fox, Fuki just stared at her hands and answered, nope, not at all. Her voice was so carefree as she could make it. But I believe their attributes only work during the game, she reached the conclusion. As I thought, Issei had his suspicions but weren't entirely sure. They don't work unless it's an official fighting game. Well, let's see what the app changed inside the app. He used the phone again and went to team. Format, a lineup could be seen, push-up position was occupied. It was really simple looking. It was exactly like a vertical list. King, queen, bishop, knight, rook, and pawn pieces. Only the information he wanted to show. Probably this was the only information others received during the official match. It held the same data as a scan. He decided to erase the picture. He did not want anyone to notice something too suspicious. The king position was already filled, but aside from his name, which was Ryu, his race and level, which was marked with question mark, the rest was empty. Seeing the question marks, he thought, could it be a bug in the app? He shrugged his shoulders. He didn't actually care much about it, so he let it slide. Good. Satisfied about the team part, he turned around and looked at the vampire. She understood what he implied, and like Fuki, she stood some meters away and waited for the scan to begin. Issei smiled at how they could easily communicate without speaking. He really liked that. Let's begin. He pushed the scan button, and the same red light was seen. Soon after, information about Erika was known. Name unknown. Race vampire. Specific race unknown. Level low tier, low god. Possible pieces 8 pawn pieces, 2 rook pieces, 1 queen piece, 2 knight pieces, any other of former mutated. Issei now understood what Drake was talking about. So it's like this. He knew that Erika was far above the level mentioned. Possibly even top tier, but since her magical reserves were low, it only mentioned that much. He then stopped closer, and like with Fuki, he chanted, would you, Erika Dracula, become my mutated rook for this battle until victory is achieved? He grabbed the mutated rook piece and placed it in her hand. His words and actions managed to get a blush from the beauty, but to hide it, she turned her head away. Of course, the piece flew and went inside her chest, the same as Fuki. After the process ended, Issei grabbed the phone once again and checked the team part. On one of the rook's positions, the information of Erika could be seen, and like with Fuki, he erased the picture and just left what he believed was enough. Right now, Issei was officially inside the world-class rating game. A smile appeared on his face. And so it begins. His voice was happy. and two beauties smiled like him. Erika was battle-thirsty grin, while Fuki smiled in a mischievous manner. The birth of one of the strongest teams inside the game has just happened today, and right now, they were just starting. Who knew what the rest of their journey had for them? And that is the end of Chapter 8. First move, my turn. Chapter 9. The Ruins of the World. Ever since finally forming his team, Issei became far more relaxed than before, maybe because the biggest problem in his list was now solved, but even with that solved, he still had a few dilemmas. Thanks to the little stunt pulled by Erika, the underworld now had suspicions about them. Add the fact that the Shinto faction was also looking for them, and well, you have a headache. In fact, ever since they came back, a couple of days have passed and all of them were either training or looking around the place. Everything was fine except the movements of the Shinto faction were starting to reach all the way here, to Nasuno. They actually got here a little later than expected. Therefore, after making sure they avoided the scouts sent to find them, Issei finally decided to follow the next part of his plan. Now, the three team members were outside at the main garden. I believe that it's finally time for us to leave, at least until everything here in Japan calms down. His words sounded harsh, but the pair of women knew that he was right. The vampire crossed her arms under the chest and started to talk. Issei just ignored the pair of attributes that were just too obvious. Yes, I think that we need to leave. The sooner the better. She turned around and looked at the fox, who was surprisingly quite calm. I know we need to leave. She sounded kind of sad, but I made my mind a long time ago. She had a serious but childish look on her face, starts to seem present in her eyes. Since discovering the group of scouts too close to her own personal comfort, she decided to leave the place. Issei, she looked at him. Where are we going? Issei, on the other hand, was thinking. Make it interesting, Issei. The vampire quickly added. She wanted to go somewhere interesting and cool, a place where not many dared to adventure. Issei moved from his thinking position and looked into the beauty's eyes. Seeing the glow in his eyes, she knew he had something planned. I have been thinking, and I believe that Kuwait should be a good option. The place was rather famous. It was a beautiful location in the Middle East, an excellent place to tour around, filled with a lot of different things. It was a technological superpower, and if one investigated deep enough, a city that was almost everything. Tall buildings, beautiful sceneries, excellent food, and among other things. Kuwait? Erika never heard of a city like that, but it indeed sounded interesting. I've never been there. Fuki tilted her head. She was the same as the vampire. A city where the epitome of the human technology and one of the most modern cities across the globe. He liked that. It sounded like a place that will show you more about the human culture. He mainly decided this destination thanks to this. If he could show how human culture grew to the pair of women, then he could keep his promise of not boring them. Erika needed to see the world and how far it has reached, how the difference in human beings was compared to now, and he needed to show Fuki how big the world was. That way she never felt better about herself and see that not everyone persecutes her because of her existence. Oh, the fox was interested in the city. Erika just smirked at the thought. You never cease to impress me, you say. I like that. Seeing the light in the eyes of the pair of women, he knew that he was right in the choice. Good. We'll depart in an hour. Make sure you don't leave anything behind, and also, erase your presence from any shrine. Issei ordered the females and just nodded their heads and went inside the shrine. I'm quite excited myself, he said, once everyone was gone, but the dragon in his head answered.
Interesting choice, partner. I have also never been there, but by the research you did, I'm quite curious myself.
The dragon in his many years of sacred gear has never been in that territory, so for him, it was also a new experience. Yeah, Drake, everyone is quite interested, he mentally talked to the dragon. After an hour has passed, everyone finished doing what they needed to do, and at the same garden they were just at, they met again. The females didn't hold a single bag with them, but Issei knew that they shouldn't have to use the pocket dimension to keep everything stored. Ready? He asked the females, who only nodded their heads. Looking back at the shrine, Issei did a quick checkup with his senses. Not finding anything odd, he nodded in approval. Do it! He looked at Fuki and ordered. She nodded her head and the bracelet of her left wrist expanded and started to spin in front of them. She then chanted, break the boundaries between the worlds, Yagatani no Magatama, transfer. The space in front of them distorted and a new portal was quickly made. Let's go. They nodded their heads as a sign of going after him. Issei just went towards the space. Foop! An odd sound was heard. It was too quick, like a car just sped by. The vampire was the second to go inside. By the recommendation of Issei, she took off her greaves and gauntlets, leaving only a deep black bodysuit. Instead, she decided to wear a pair of high heels and black stockings that covered much of the skin of her legs. But it made her a walking bombshell. As an extra, she tied a long-sleeve black jacket on her hips, making her look even better than before. Fuki was like always in short black dress and with red accents. The strips of her sandals were tied all the way to her calves, yet the image she gave was no less astounding than the vampire. Those red eyes of hers were for Issei, too flirty, making her look exactly like a seductress. The pair of women crossed the portal, but Fuki just turned around and smiled as she looked at the place. Soon after, like the both of them, she left. The shrine was officially empty, and no one will know that the three of them were actually here all this time. Scene change, Kuwait, light afternoon, the beach. Thanks to the time difference, it was almost night at Kuwait, and thanks to that, the beach was empty. The cold winds and the absence of light made the humans leave the place, yet right now, the portal was made in the furthest ends of the beach near the ocean. Form it. 3 figures appeared, a man and 2 beautiful women. You actually didn't send us to a weird location. That's new. Issa decided to tease the fox a little. She just crossed her arms and turned her head away, but her blush, even with the little light they had, was still visible. Let's go. Kuwait at night is even more beautiful than in the day. He walked past the woman while giving the small smile. The two of them turned around and witnessed a beautiful sight. The tall buildings were lit up, shining and multicolored. Artificial light, the tallest of the buildings had even more bright lights that suited them perfectly, making them stand out from the dark sky. The sky was an odd mixture of orange and black, giving to the entire city an calming atmosphere. The only thing they could hear was the sounds of the cars passing by the roads and the noise of the rustling leaves on the trees. The entire place was worthy of remembering it. While the 2 women were looking around, the light in their eyes, Issa was just smirking at the sight. He then placed his hands in his coat pockets and started to walk in the building's direction. The woman watched him walk past them and soon started to follow. After walking away from the beach, they reached a highway. Thankfully, a bridge used by the natives was here. It was at one side of the road, so they could safely walk across the highway without much problem. Once in the bridge, the lights of the city became even prettier, and the view managed to capture was 3 times better than before, but didn't stop them from continuing their walk. All were slightly looking at the different parts of the city. At some times they made comments about the general location in general, talking amongst themselves about nothing in particular or just messing around. Clearly, they were far closer than before. 30 minutes later, the 3 of them reached what they believed to be the center of the city. Stories were either at the side of the polished stone roads, and some nightclubs were finally open, with their music to the maximum. "Where do you want to go?" the fox asked, while ignoring the eyes of the males present. Issa was thinking, how about the Liberation Tower? He pointed at the tallest tower they could see and proposed to them. The vampire just nodded her head while giving a death glare to the humans males near them, frightening half of the males watching them. Fuki just smiled, causing the rest of the males to have to blush. Good. Issei turned around and decided to head to the tower. It wasn't far away. He walked with confidence and pride, guiding his 2 teammates to the next location. Unknowingly for him, most females were looking at him in an odd fashion, forcing Fuki to change her smile to a threatening glare. Erica was also annoyed at the looks of the females, but the glare of Fuki was just enough for them to stop. After walking around the streets, buying some food from the street vendors, going inside some interesting sounding shops, and basically touring around, they reached their original destination. "We're here!" Fuki threw a stick of her popsicle away. Finally, the vampire just crossed her arms and looked at the tower in front of them. Issei soon noticed that there were a large queue in front of them. "We can't stay in line. It will close before we even move." Thinking about something, Issei noticed a sign right at the steel gate. Although it was written in different language, he learned a useful spell for this kind of situation. Discreetly using his trusty spell, a black magic circle appeared on his hand that was still inside of his coat pocket. "Open since 8 a.m., closes at 7 p.m. That was the sign he said. That was the sign what he read. We don't have much time left. He noticed that it was rather late. Soon he planned something. He then smirked and turned around. The dragon inside the boosted gear was smiling. He liked this plan. Fuki, she turned around and looked at him. Seeing his scheming face and crafty glint in his eyes, she discovered that he had something planned. "I want you to use your Jojutsu and hide us." "We don't have time to line up," he pointed with his thumb at the queue. The female then noticed a huge line and sign, therefore she smiled beautifully and nodded. Erika just laughed silently, quite scheming he was. Soon after, the yokai used her powers and a mysterious-looking mist covered the three of them. After that, they literally vanished from their spot. Calmly walking to the entrance, the three of them dodged the guards and skipped the line. After some time, they reached the inside of the tower. Issei just made a sign to Fuki for her to dismiss the spell. Like that, the mist that surrounded her body soon left, as if carried by the wind. Excellent, Issei patted Fuki's head. She liked that after all. We're here. Thankfully, nothing happened. They all started to climb up the stairs of the building. After climbing all the way up, they reached a single circular in the room of the tourists that were lying down below we're currently at. Looking around the place, they noticed that a circular room held no concrete walls and just windows. Walking near an empty spot, they looked out the windows and saw the entire city. All of them were silent, not saying a word. Erika just saw incredibly tall buildings, and standing as proof of the change in their society, her eyes held amazement and even curiosity. She was dazed by a modern human culture. Fuki was just silent, her eyes widened in surprise and excitement. She loved the scenery of the city, and she definitely liked how beautiful the world was outside of Japan. Ever since being with Issei, the pair of women felt satisfied and happy about their current situations. Their choice of coming with him was definitely the right one. Issei was different from the two. He leaned over the rail and relaxed. His tense eyes finally calmed down. Only at this kind of movements would he really feel that he was free. It would be a lie to say that he didn't think all of this was a dream. After spending all that time in such a terrible state, still left some squeals on him. But looking on the scenery of Kuwait, at the beautiful night sky and artificially illuminated buildings, he felt free, and everything his entire self was more composed.
Partner, I know that you're still wounded by what happened, but let it pass. That is already part of your past. It's time for you to finally move on. The first step you did a long time ago. Now is the time for you to continue your journey.
Drake acted as a mentor and soon gave his advice. Let me just cut in for a minute. Drake, our friend here, Drake, is right. I actually had an experience just like this. And well, guys, you just have to move on, because success is the best revenge. Remember that. Issei was different from the past. Now he had good companies, and with Drake at his side, he knew that whatever happens to him, he won't be alone. Not anymore. Looking at the city, his eyes were filled with nostalgia and other complex emotions. He just leaned there, taking the scenery to heart and trying to move on with his life. Although the first step is always the most difficult one, continuing what you started is no less complicated. But he thought that he was doing a good job, and sooner or later he will finally leave all of that, all of what he experienced behind. Soon he was lost in thought. The people inside the tower started to leave after some time, and it was empty. The pair of women just got out of their thoughts and started to look around, quickly finding Issei. However, Issei was still as before, looking out the window. Since the three of them were separated inside the room, the fox and vampire silently decided to go where Issei was located at. Meeting halfway, they saw Issei leaning over a rail looking directly at the heart of the city. Stopping some meters behind him, they talked amongst themselves. "What's wrong with Issei?" the vampire asked as she saw the many emotions inside the eyes of a dragon. She saw many emotions, some of which she knew quite well: nostalgia, pain, anger, and hopelessness. Seeing him with those eyes made her blood freeze. Issei? The fox noticed the same thing as the vampire, but she understood a bit more. His eyes held some kind of burden, something that was annoying him a great deal. She knew that those emotions had something to do with his past. "Fuki, has Issei ever told you why he was so different and what put him as this?" she asked, woman at her side, curious and slightly worried over him. The vampire, when alone with the fox, would sometimes ask more about Issei's past, but aside from the anecdotes of his many adventures, nothing more was known. When they asked about him more private stuff, he would sometimes talk about it, about some of the things that he went through, but when any of them asked what happened after the war, he would completely ignore their questions. His eyes filled will almost turn like this, dull and devoid of any emotions. Neither of them knew what to do. "He's hiding something." Fuki narrowed his eyes and reached the conclusion Erika was also the same. They both knew that something extremely horrible must have happened to him. Since some time ago they had their suspicions, but seeing him like this, they knew it was something terrible. Fuki also talked with Erika about the word she heard from Albion the day they escaped from Kyoto's Imperial Palace, so they knew that something happened, but they didn't exactly know what. Right now, They just knew each other for a couple of weeks, so they decided that after more time has passed, and after Issei finally trusts them even more than now, at the moment, they will ask about what happened, even if they needed to tie him to a chair and force him to talk. However, for now, they could only wait until that moment. Issei returned back to himself after some time passed. He turned around and saw the eyes of Fuki and Erika. Fuki had worry written all over her face while Erika was looking at him with an uneasy look on her face. Sorry, he apologized to both of them. He knew that he needed to explain, but right now he wasn't ready. Not yet. They both nodded their heads, understanding his words, not pushing the issue at hand. After that, he walked past them and decided to leave the tower, while Drake on the stairs talked to him.
Partner, you need to say it. I know they are important to you and you don't wish to talk about it because you hate it. But sooner or later you will need to do it.
The wisdom of the dragon made him think. I know, Drake, but I'm confused. I feel scared. I think it'll happen again, and this time I will certainly die. Nothing will save me. His voice sounded raspy and sad.
Partner, I know that you feel uneasy about something like this happening again, but in a couple of days we spent with both of them, I noticed they are vastly different from the rest. Just look. Right now, they know you are hiding something, but they don't force it and give you your own space and time to willingly talk about it.
Drake was trying to help his friend. Issei was just quiet, listening to his words.
If it was the Gremory girl, then she would have asked until she either succeeded in her attempt, or she would have cried saying that you don't trust her, making you feel even worse. Yet, they are different.
Issei knew he was right but he was doubting.
The rest are the same. Just remember, the Fallen toyed with you because she thought it was fun. The White Cat insulted you because you were too honest with them. The Church Warrior wanted your genes because of the boosted gear. Do you want me to continue?
The dragon was quiet and strict with his words. Was quite strict with his words.
They are different. The vampire's a troublemaker, but she's an excellent woman. She listens when it's needed, and because what she's experienced, she gives her own space to think and calm down. Because she knows what it feels to have someone all the time ask about something you don't want to talk about. And because she knows how cruel life can be, she gives you time.
Drake wasn't holding any punches.
The reason the two of them communicate and understand each other so easily is because both of you live something extremely familiar. She left alone by everyone, not because of choice, but because of chance, and due to that she was sealed inside the ruins of a lost empire. And you were left alone by choice rather than chance, slowly dying a painful, horrible death. I wouldn't wish for anyone, even for my worst enemy.
He was silently hearing those words. Thinking about them, Issei kept his head low and continued walking down the stairs, not taking his eyes off the ground, completely focused on his own thoughts. The woman, when they saw him like that, went uneasy, but they soon noticed a small green glow on the reserves of his left palm. They knew he must be talking with the dragon. By the looks of his face, it was something rather big and important, maybe even related to the reason behind his change. Because of that, and the severity of the aura surrounding him, they were just quiet, only looking at him. Issei was silent, digesting Drake's words.
The fox obviously has feelings for you, yet she doesn't force it. She knows that if she forces it, it will all be for nothing. An unstable relationship like that you had will once again be created, and if that happens, in the long term you will separate yourselves from each other. She's waiting for the right moment, a moment in which you are mentally ready to accept the woman.
To support his claim, Drake made him remember something.
Or have you forgotten the moment in which the Gremory and the rest of her Parage yelled at you? At the club before the match against the Biel?
Issei widened his eyes and stopped walking, turning his left hand into a fist.
At that moment, they selfishly attacked you, because you couldn't understand her feelings, and because of that, they couldn't start their own plans.
Issei bit his tongue.
They completely disregarded your own feelings, having a trauma because of the Fallen, your first girlfriend, the sole woman aside your mother, who once loved you.
Issei had a somber look in his eyes as he remembered that woman, Rainier.
They ignored you, treating you like the bad guy of the movie. And when you asked why were they like that, they scorned you and said you were horrible for not understanding, when the ones that didn't understand them were them. Each word was sharper than a knife, but it was necessary. You were very confused and kept thinking, why? They left the room, and only you were remaining. They left you to think about what you did wrong, when the ones that did something bad and horrible were actually them.
Issei started to walk again. Soon he reached the main door.
Issei, you need to learn how to differentiate people. Once you learn how, you will never pass through something like this again. Not every woman is evil, just like not every man is good. Life is just like that. And not because of someone bad you met, you should think that everyone else is like that.
Drake finished his speech. Issei, after opening the door at the bottom of the stairs, kept walking with his hand in his pockets, thinking about his words. You're right. He decided to listen to the dragon, to his partner and friend that helped him through so much. I can't keep myself like this, but I can't just forget what I went through. Remember, guys, forgive, but never forget. Issei reached a conclusion. I will tell them, but I need time. Once I'm ready, once I don't let my past affect me, I'll say it. Drake was satisfied. His partner was certainly different from before. He needed time, just like everything did. His partner was certainly different. Just like everything did, Rome wasn't built in a day, and for his partner to rebuild what was destroyed will take time. Yet the resolve was there. He was now more relaxed. His partner just improved even more. This journey was, after all, something good. The goal of it was to understand the world, but mostly himself. Call it a journey in search of enlightenment, an adventure that will help him grow mentally and spiritually. He then turned around and looked at the woman in question. He smiled and told them, Please wait until I'm ready. I know that there is something you wish to know, but I still feel bad about it. Once I'm done with it, I'll tell you, I swear. The women looked at each other in shock, but quickly smiled, but then they looked at Issei and nodded their heads. Seeing them like this, Issei felt a sense of relief. He knew that when he asked was selfish, but he really needed some time. He smiled as a response to their agreement and turned around. There were still many things they needed to do before they left for another place. He walked away from the tower, this time calm and sure about what he needed to do. The two women walked a step behind him, but they were still worried about what exactly happened to him. They knew Issei rather closely, but for him not to tell about what happened, it must have been something traumatic. Scene change, port of Kuwait, 3 days later. Okay, how did you get that? Erika asked Issei while looking at the thing behind him. Fuki stared at it with her eyes, still like a child. About that, he scratched his cheek. I already had it with me, a gift from someone a couple months ago. He replied, proud of what he thought of some days ago. After touring Kuwait, he decided after finishing looking around the place they should go somewhere else. However, the how they should leave was never on his head, until yesterday. Erika went wide-eyed at his response, and her mouth opened a bit due to her surprise. She kept holding at the vehicle he chose. He chose to leave Kuwait. A big red sailboat was behind Issei. It was big enough to be called a luxury yacht. Its red color was similar to his own eyes, and some black parts could be seen in the hull. The man saw was lighter tone of red, and the whole boat caught off the eyes of everyone in the sport. It was big, around 2 floors in height, and thanks to some magic, he made it look like a normal boat. The boat was no other than Ridimaru, his own familiar. After spending the entire day of yesterday on the beach and all over the coast of Kuwait, he thought of something. Seeing many humans on their ship sailing the coast, he remembered about his own boat familiar. Then he decided after leaving the woman behind, he went to check the size of the Ryotamaru. At first, it was a big surprise to see the huge size of this familiar, but at the same time, he was also happy about it. With this, he decided his means of transport to leave Kuwait. Where are we going? The vampire asked him with a deadpan look on her face. Issei smirked. We shall sail through the Persian Gulf. Clearly excited. And that is where we're going to stop for now. This time I didn't leave you exactly on a cliffhanger, okay? So don't get mad at me, but last time it was necessary. Thank you so much for the support once again. Remember, if you would like to become a balance breaker or a limit breaker, it will be the first link in the description below. And I was giving a little bit of advice during this episode because I didn't go through the traumatic things as Issei went in his lifetime. I did not die, right? But as of recent, around 2 months ago, I was also in one of those situations with a woman. And let me tell you something, okay? Remember to, now, I haven't exactly forgiven this person yet. It's kind of hard to. But to forgive somebody like that, it's going to take a while. And it's not going to be easy. And also, I wanted to say something else. Never be afraid of being alone, okay? Because this whole entire summer, the only thing I did was train, as you guys can see, and record. And it's the only thing I was due and focused on. I wanted to focus on my content, improve myself a bit, learn how to edit somewhat, and do all these things that I wanted to do for a long time, but I needed to put effort. Remember, I have been looking into I've also been looking into some other thing like becoming smarter and things like that. Like, I want to read more books and just become smarter. Like, I want to learn about the Aztecs. This story encouraged me to do that, basically. And I've already been training. I'm doing the crazy training stuff right now, and I have improved quite a bit. I have, oh man, I definitely have a good body now. Let's put it that way. But everybody starts somewhere. So even if let's say that you're a little bit overweight, or you're a little bit overage, or you're like in your 40s, 30s, high 20s, something like that, or even younger, this goes for everybody. It's never too late to start training or anything that you wanted to do. Just remember that it's always necessary, okay? I know I'm getting a little preachy here, but I just wanted to show everybody because I never talk about my personal life in my YouTube videos, and I will never release this person's information, nor talk about the school that I go to or anything like that, so just keep that in mind. But just know that I am a track runner, and that's as far as you're going to get. So I am a sprinter. I do the 400 and the 200 and the 100 now, somehow. But, so, I'm a collegiate athlete, if any of you guys were wondering. But thank you so much for the support. It's been absolutely amazing. 30,000 subscribers, what a blessing. Thank you. Thank you so much, okay? Thank you to all my balance breakers. Thank you to all my limit breakers. You guys helped me a huge amount, as well as all of you too. And once again, I just want you to remember, I'm going to repeat it again. Never be afraid of being alone, because it's okay. I was alone this whole entire summer. I talked to a couple people here and there. I hung out with a couple people here and there. But for the most part, I had to find something that I needed for a while. So you need to go on a little bit of a journey and just solo yourself out for the world a little bit. I completely understand. Go to the gym. That's pretty much all I did this summer. I trained my ass off, and well, I'm pretty sure it worked. I changed my diet. I ate way healthier than ever before. Been doing it this whole entire time. Too many carrots. So thank you so much for the support. Let's try to hit 1,000 likes again. Subscribe to my second channels, Impopowski and Spartan, and Fallen DXD. But without further ado, let's try to hit 1,000 likes. Without further ado, Spartanic Arts DXD out.